Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to explore something you might not immediately associate with modern warfare: beard grooming. I know it sounds a bit niche, but it actually sits right at this fascinating intersection of tactical necessity, cultural anthropology, logistics, and hardcore safety. Which brings us to a really provocative question right out of the gate. Why on earth would a soldier risk strict military discipline just to grow a beard? I mean, we all have this mental image of spit-polished, perfectly uniformed troops standing at attention, right? But the messy reality of survival in a battle zone often forces a massive, drastic change in those pristine grooming standards. Okay, let's dive right in. We've got a lot of ground to cover today. We'll start with the clean-shaven military myth, look at rule-breaking survival in Vietnam, using beards as cultural armor in the Middle East, the gray zone of Syria, trenches and gas in Ukraine, and wrap it all up with some core lessons in grooming. Starting with Section 1, the clean-shaven military myth. You see, the pristine rules drafted up in a comfy, safe garrison almost always clash violently with the gritty reality of the field. Over the past several decades, we've watched this massive evolution of the tactical beard. It goes all the way from jungle ops in the 1960s Vietnam War to the deployments in Afghanistan and Iraq in the 2000s, through the Syrian asymmetric conflicts of the 2010s, right up to the brutal 2020s trench warfare we're seeing in Ukraine. These grooming standards didn't just evolve on paper. They were constantly being broken and rewritten by the battlefield itself. Moving into Section 2, Vietnam and rule-breaking survival. So, back at base camp, standard issue regulations were all about that spit polish, clean-shaven look. But the reality for special forces and long-range reconnaissance patrols, the guys out in the deep jungle, was entirely different. When you're out on a protracted patrol, daily shaving, it's a dangerous luxury. It wastes incredibly scarce drinking water, creates unnecessary noise, and it opens you up to constant micro-injuries in a totally unforgiving environment. Honestly, it's almost hard to overstate just how actively hostile the jungle was to clean-shaven skin. Think about it: extreme 100% humidity, monsoons, deep mud, heavy vegetation everywhere. Constant exposure meant that freshly shaved skin was exceptionally prone to severe fungal infections and infected razor bumps. Letting your facial hair grow past a certain point actually acted as a literal physical shield, protecting your skin against the dense brush and relentless insect bites. And this practical necessity sparked a huge psychological shift. A ragged appearance quickly became a signal that a unit was hardened, field-tested, and focused entirely on survival. Irregular units started deliberately dropping rigid garrison discipline just to build operational cohesion. Having that rugged look basically de-emphasized formal rank and proved that the unit cared about staying alive above passing some spit and polish inspection. All right, Section 3, Middle East, cultural armor. Fast forward a few decades to the post-9/11 conflicts, and the beard transforms into something completely different. It became a vital psychological weapon and a critical cultural bridge. In places like Afghanistan and Iraq, the tactical beard or tour beard had a massive resurgence, even among conventional troops. Why? Because in those rural societies, facial hair is deeply, deeply tied to concepts of maturity, dignity, religious piety, and social standing. If you showed up with a perfectly clean-shaven face, the local populations might just view you as immature or untrustworthy. So civil military teams would grow beards to blend in, reduce that visual barrier, and project a mature presence that village elders would inherently respect. But there is a massive catch. Let's call it the gas mask paradox. On the one hand, a beard in a hyper-dusty environment naturally filters out fine matter and gives you great insulation against blistering sun and windburn. On the other hand, the institutional risk is absolutely huge. A beard breaks the airtight seal of an M40 or M50 gas mask. Commanders were constantly having to weigh the benefit of earning local trust against the absolutely deadly threat of chemical weapons. To manage it, troops literally had to carry emergency shaving grease and disposable razors right in their kits, ready to dry shave in seconds if gas threats spiked. Wild, right? Next up, Section 4, Syria and the Gray Zone. Over in the multifactional proxy conflicts of Syria, traditional rules just completely went out the window into an asymmetric free-for-all. Facial hair got totally decoupled from formal military regulation. You had these hyper-congested spaces with so many different actors: local defense forces, Kurdish militias, international volunteers, and opposition groups. Personal appearance basically became an immediate visual shorthand for your identity and your alignment. In a chaotic tactical environment like that, a beard was just a super pragmatic, rapid way to signal who you are and who you stood with. Beyond just identity, there was the sheer reality of logistical isolation. When securing clean water for drinking and basic cooking takes absolutely all your energy and resources, yeah, personal grooming gets deferred indefinitely. Actually, scratch that, it drops off the priority list entirely. When your unit is cut off from reliable supply lines, you definitely do not waste scarce drinking water on a morning shave.
Which brings us to Section 5, Ukraine, Trenches, and Gas.
Modern day Ukraine has been a brutal reality check. The high intensity conventional warfare there has reintroduced industrial scale combat and freezing seasonal extremes, which completely shatters the romantic myth of the giant tactical beard. Sure, a neatly trimmed beard is great. It provides a nice micro layer of wind insulation for your cheeks against sub zero temps. But a long, unmanaged beard? It's a massive hazard. It literally accumulates frozen breath condensation, building up ice around the mouth and nostrils, which actively draws heat away from your face and severely increases the risk of frostbite in those freezing trenches. No thanks.
But the biting cold isn't even the biggest problem we're seeing reshape grooming. We need to talk about CBRN. That's chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats. This changes the entire game. Unlike counterinsurgency environments where chemical weapon use was pretty rare, industrial scale warfare brings this grave threat right back to the absolute front line.
The active threat of things like tear gas, chloropicrin, and weaponized agents makes an airtight respirator seal quite literally a matter of life and death. Ukrainian troops operating close to the zero line have to be ready to slap on a positive pressure respirator instantly. If you have a heavy, bushy beard, you compromise the rubber skirt seal of that mask, and it becomes a fatal liability. Functionality completely dictates a clean shave here, or at the absolute most, a very tight trim that respects the sealing surface of the gas mask. Yet, even in this grinding war of attrition, humanity still persists. Allowing minor deviations in personal appearance can actually be a really important boost to individual autonomy and morale. Uniformity gets stripped away by sheer necessity, so local battalion commanders will sometimes use their discretion to look the other way on grooming. It just helps troops maintain a tiny shred of individuality and cope with extreme psychological stress under horrific conditions. Finally, Section 6, Core Lessons in Grooming. Let's pull all these threads together and confidently synthesize the ultimate takeaways from our historical tour. Number 1, water discipline absolutely trumps vanity. If water is scarce, hygiene adapts. Period. Number 2, chemical threats demand a pristine respirator seal. If gas is a real risk, the beard has to go. Number 3, environmental extremes dictate your maintenance. A little stubble blocks the sun, but a bushy beard and a freezing trench will literally give you frostbite. And number 4, cultural context is vital. Softening a hyper-militarized appearance with some facial hair can work wonders for lowering civilian resistance and building local rapport. So what does this all mean for the future? Which leaves us with this final, profound question to ponder. With all these evolving, high-tech battlefield threats out there, drones, modern chemical agents, industrial artillery, will the perfectly shaven soldier become a permanent necessity again? Or is it destined to be just another broken rule the very second troops hit the dirt? It's pretty wild to think how something as simple as facial hair can literally dictate survival. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and keep exploring.